Senpai! Welcome back, y'all! Today I wanted to take some time to discuss an anime that I watched to completion. I know, I was surprised too! Usually, I get to episode 7 and then I get distracted by all kinds of things. But today, we're gonna discuss Uzaki-chan wa Asobutai, aka Uzaki-chan wants to hang out. Consider this video reasons why I believe you should check out the anime. Be warned, this video will contain spoilers for the show. Granted, there really isn't much to spoil. Continue watching at your own discretion. So, in the first impression video I made, link in the description, we left our leads at the end of episode 3. To quickly recap, we've been introduced to Shinichi and Hana hanging out and annoying each other in the cutest way. We also got a good idea of what's hidden underneath Shinichi's glare when he encountered a stray cat, and when we got a glimpse of him at work. Episode 3 introduced Amy, the cafe owner's daughter, who takes immediate interest in the drama unfolding between our main cast. Through her, we come to understand Hana's true intentions with the hanging out business, which leads to a cute moment where she decides to help out Shinichi when he's sick. At this point, it's safe to say that our lovebirds are incredibly clueless, and yet, they continue to gravitate to each other. Now, before moving on, I want to get into the public reception of this anime. This show is not without controversy. For starters, the internet was on fire with folks slinging crap back and forth over the design of Hana. As you know in the show, she's of below average height with a wonderfully large pair of eyes. Not to mention, Sugoi Dekai! Many people took issue with this design and were very vocal about it, some going as far as to render their own designs of the character. I don't want to get too far in the woods here. I'll just say that, being a niche piece of entertainment within a niche genre of animation, this character was likely not going to have much mainstream appeal. I also really like how Hana was designed, but more on that later. I'm going to do my best not to give a complete plot dump and analysis of the show. I figure it would be a good idea to present key moments in the series that really show off the best and worst the show has to offer. So let's begin with episode 4. This episode presents a typical Golden Week episode, which is kind of like spring break in Japan, but only in the sense that it's an entire week off of school and work due to several national holidays falling on the same week. This episode's notable for expanding on our not couple having not dates out in the town in full view of Amy. Rather than fall down the love triangle route most shows would, this one enforces the fact that Amy's only really interested in seeing Hana and Shinichi fall for each other, despite her secret attraction to Shinichi's washboard abs. In the following episode, we're introduced to Shinichi's friend Ishuhito, who actually exists to Hana's disbelief. Ishuhito picks up on the vibe between Hana and Shinichi almost immediately, and unlike Amy, he decides that he wants to put these two into a situation that will make their romance blossom. I also want to mention, at the end of this episode, Hana's given the opportunity to make a big speech about chocolate mint, which is like a high point of the series. What follows this episode is the beach episode. Bikinis everywhere. Need I say more? Well, okay. This episode also shows Hana getting a job at the same cafe as Shinichi, which he totally loves. Something else that's important to point out about this episode is it also shows what happens when Hana goes too far with her teasing. What follows is an episode where Hana and Shinichi are hanging out at a cat cafe, get kicked out, and then spend Hana's birthday drinking at a pub. Can I say that it's really surreal seeing how our leads get a room to themselves in a pub with a little tablet to order drinks? It sure as hell beat the bars I've wasted time visiting. Anyway, what you think happens at the end of this episode actually does. No, not that! Hana has a hangover! The following episode presents an echo of an earlier situation where Hana's not acting like her usual self. This ends up having our lovebirds go to a festival together and getting back on track with a bit of a flashback to their high school days mixed in. This is another high point in the series when it comes to the romance, and I choked up a bit at the end. Next, we get introduced to Hana's mother, Suki. She's sweet and kind and prone to misunderstandings. We also get a glimpse of what the show would be like where Hana acted more like your typical rom-com female lead, which thankfully doesn't last too long. This episode leads us to the next, which is a short vacation to Tottori. We're told this city's a famous vacation spot because of its giant sand dunes, but later in the episode we find that it's also a popular vacation spot for couples. In the following episode, we find that Hana and Shinichi are hanging out every day now and exhibiting habits of a typical couple. We also get what I would consider the best fan service in the series when tipsy Hana and Amy catch Shinichi doing solo karaoke. They decide to crash his solo karaoke party wearing cosplay. Finally, we find ourselves at the end of the series where the conflict is resolved immediately. The episode probably gets us as close as we've ever been to Hana admitting she has feelings for Shinichi. What's more, we come to find out why Shinichi hasn't made a move when he admits to being too shy to do so. This happens after Hana makes him drunk, of course. This episode ends on a misunderstanding, and a semi-cliffhanger. We're given a glimpse of what we can expect to see as the story continues, assuming it gets another series. I'm sure they've already printed the next bit, but I haven't checked out the manga yet. I'm sorry. Previously I described Hana as someone who's charmingly insufferable. I've come to find that this characterization is quite polarizing. From what I've seen on the interwebs, some folks have been dropping the show when they have had enough of Hana. I totally understand this because Hana is really, really intense. However, I was immediately charmed by her energy. I should confess something to y'all. I'm not much of a talker. In fact, I can't really think of a meaningful conversation I've had that wasn't about the weather in recent memory. During my short time here, I've found that I usually gravitate to people like Hana. People who can talk about anything that crosses their mind. The type that might die if the conversation doesn't carry on. The type that are eager to hang out with you, despite you being you. They like to gently pick on you. They secretly have a crush on you, which they haven't fully come to terms with. And should you make the mistake of breaking the veil of friendship, they will immediately run away. Years later, you'll reminisce about the good times you shared that one summer after meeting their fiancé. You'll laugh, out of politeness, and you'll lose the memento you had in your pocket that you meant to pass on to them to try to reignite the past. Hana's designed to be shorter than average. They make jokes about this constantly too, like the episode in the coffee shop where the owner meets her for the first time. She has short, whitish hair color, a skin fang, and a big smile. It's almost like a committee came together to design someone that would appeal specifically to me. To be realistic, there may have been some committee that helped with this design because she echoes aspects of romantic leads in different shows like Hestia. Shinichi, on the other hand, was designed to be a collage of contrasts. He's very athletic and strong, and muscly, typical Husbando material. I mentioned earlier how he's referred to having a villainous look, but it's not very consistently referenced in the show. Some people find it off-putting, and others pay it no mind. I think the show is trying to make a point about that. Shinichi puts himself out there in two different ways based on where he's at, like between university and the cafe. It actually brings up a part about his characterization. He's very introverted, like he never does anything outside of school and work, despite having friends, and he's unafraid to go out and have fun solo. This is a primary driver for the plot, but of course, it brings up a very good question. Why the heck does Shinichi need to change? Uzaki-chan leads off the series by living up to its name. Hana weasels her way into hanging out with Shinichi one afternoon. Little by little, they end up hanging out all the time, nearly becoming an official couple. The show's plot boils down to Shinichi being a loner and Hana wanting to save him from this lifetime of solitude. That sends a bit of a mixed signal at first because there really isn't anything wrong with wanting to fly solo. However, the show attempts to plaster over that using the history our main characters have with each other. Without giving away too much, Hana reacts like most do when they meet Shinichi at first. After getting to know him a bit more in high school, she becomes an instant admirer. When they meet in the university, she has that same admiration for him, but seeing what he's become forces her to want to get back the Shinichi she knew. Is that a romance trope? I'm not too familiar with the genre in its pure form, but I imagine this is a story that has been told before. I admire the various attempts the show makes at being comedic. Not every joke landed, but the show never gave up trying to give you a laugh at how ridiculous it could be. In the end, it was a lovely garnish to the show that was mostly a quirky story about two youths not yet aware of their feelings for one another. Strange. Being an animation of Japanese origin with a well-endowed female protagonist, you should know that there's a lot of fan service. What's fan service? Who said that? How can I describe the trope as educationally as possible? Fan service is when the show takes a break from the plot to be sexy for a minute. Usually it's presented as an accident. The female lead will be put into a position where your imagination can take you to a wonderful place. Before getting too out of hand, the show will usually end the sequence with a joke or violence. In Uzaki-chan, the fan service usually revolves around the, well, you know, Sugoi Dekai! It only gets slightly creepy. In comparison to other popular shows of the genre, these distractions don't take away too much from the story. I'm a little conflicted here. On one hand, Sugoi Dekai! On the other hand, why? Uzaki-chan is set somewhere I have not previously seen in an anime like this. Typically, a story like this would unfold in a high school, a setting you're all too familiar with if you've been more than a casual fan of anime. I'm at the point where it's getting tough to relate to these kind of shows. Part of that's because I don't really think about what life was like back when I was a smelly high school baby anymore. I don't think there's anything more you can do to make that trope seem fresh and new either. Then again, I'm not a creative writer, and there may be someone out there creating the next hit romantic comedy set in high school. Maybe about a shark girl and a prince, or something. In Uzaki-chan, our lovebirds are living in a picturesque city by the sea and spend most of their time in and around university. There are a few other locations that they take you throughout the series. The movie theater Hana and Shinichi go to is a great example. Movie theaters may be a thing of the past due to recent events, and the one they go to is really cool looking. My favorite location in the show is the cafe where Shinichi works. It's such a lovely depiction of a comfortable and quiet locale. It's very beautifully crafted, and you can almost smell the coffee brewing. I should also mention that you also see locations you expect in this kind of show. Places like a beach, a summer festival, and a karaoke parlor. This show manages to throw a curveball when Hana and Shinichi went a plane trip to Tottori. From what you get to see, this is a lovely vacation spot in Japan where you get a good mix of culture and pop culture. Not to mention the lovey-dovey vibes that can be found in every corner. This couple's vibe is the main point of sending our leads to this location, where we get to see them squirm with their own personal feelings toward one another. Yet, it also manages to work in a cute little virtual tour of the city that looks like a wonderful place to visit. Uzaki-chan is filled with a colorful cast of characters which provide an excellent contrast to our heroes. Firstly, we're introduced to the cafe owner, Mr. Asai. He is a mild-tempered gentleman who takes great interest in the show Hana and Shinichi tend to put on when they're hanging out. This makes his cafe a second major location in the series where much of the plot unfolds. His daughter Amy, a senior attending the very same university as Hana, joins in on the fun as well. She also works at the cafe with Shinichi, and, as a hobby, Amy makes sure that she's able to catch a glimpse of every bit of drama that unfolds between them, without interfering. She's got a thing about that. This is a stark contrast to Shinichi's only friend, Ishuhito. He's an attractive university student who would rather travel than stick around for classes. He actively pushes Hana and Shinichi into situations that would make their romance almost guaranteed to blossom to middling success. As it turns out, Hana and Shinichi are way too unpredictable for that. The last major supporting character introduced is none other than Hana's mother, Suki. She loves soap operas, and it makes her unusually prone to misunderstandings with Shinichi. I really enjoyed the supporting cast of this series. They all provide a unique take on the budding relationship between Hana and Shinichi without being too distracting. I also find it charming that the anime found a way to incorporate parents into the mix where many others leave them out altogether. I had 2 issues with the supporting cast, the lesser being the introduction of Hana's younger brother, which kind of seemed like it was shoehorned in to hint at the possibility of what's to come. These days, you never know if you're getting a second season for a show, so it isn't too much of a bother. The second issue was the Deus Ex vacation Yoshiito and Amy are able to go on with Hana and Shinichi. The trip to Tottori would have been much better if our leads were alone and came to the realization that they were on a couple's trip without having to be told. That episode was pretty much the emotional climax to the series, so naturally they wanted to resolve the rest of the side plots at that point before they could comfortably come to the show's logical end. That actually takes me nicely to my thoughts on the series overall. Uzaki-chan Wants to Hang Out's what I would consider a decent entry-level rom-com / slice-of-life show. You get a good dose of common tropes in a show that's got a bit more personality than the typical one. Moreover, the show is above average when it comes to design, storytelling, and pacing, so you're unlikely to get bored. The only real roadblock to finding true enjoyment with the series is how well you take to Hana's extreme personality. If you can grit your teeth through it, you're likely to find a really cute show that doesn't overstay its welcome. That is, assuming you don't already believe Hana's a bad design and should feel bad for liking it. Personally, I found the ending to be slightly unsatisfying. We see no real resolution to the main issue of Hana and Shinichi obviously being into each other, while not being into each other. Clearly, they want to produce more show and manga, so we weren't guaranteed to see much at first. But I would have liked it if they had at least held hands. Other than the issues I pointed out earlier, there really isn't much to complain about. This is the first time I review anything with a critical eye, so I know you expect me to provide some kind of rating. Everyone on this site has their own unique way of doing so too, be it with numbers or a binary recommendation. As much as I want to stay away from that sort of thing to avoid being yet another critic, I will make a compromise. I'm going to give a rating, and I will also give you a 1-sentence takeaway from the review. Sound good? Alright, I give Uzaki-chan Wants to Hang Out the rank of pure healing. If this is a genre you find comfort in, and you have time to kill, then you will have a great time watching Uzaki-chan. Otherwise, you're not going to be missing much by giving this show a pass, or letting it sit in your backlog for a while. So, did you get through the series during the summer season, or did you give up on it? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, thank you so much for watching my videos. I hope to see y'all in the next one. Until then, ciao! That it's so hot, I wanna die. Hot weather makes me wanna die. Or maybe or. I actually don't like that sentence. It's kind of shitty. I like those. It's because that sentence is way too fucking long. Yeah, that is that is English. Today we're gonna discuss this. Come on. Fuck.